Hello, hello. This week, we have an exciting day for you today. We are discussing Alzheimer's and dementia and how that affects the truck driver. Sometimes, back in the day, they used to say, and this was it, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, regardless if you're using the substance, if you're not using the substance. Someone that is healthy, but then life change, diet change, attitude change, and then the mind. And sometimes we just have to be mindful what we put in our mind, the things that we watch on TV, the things that we read, and now that social media is just all the way there. We have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have Twitter, we have Snapchat, we have TikTok, we have all these different things that are feeding our mind something. And how much of it are we retaining? How much are we, just putting to the side? One of the things that I really found that was so interesting is that I noticed when I watched these reels that different background, and when you leave from watching these reels, you have this song playing in your head. Like, why do I have these three bars in my head all day long? What is it trying to do? What is it trying to cultivate in my mind? What is it trying to build in my thought process? Hmm. The power of the words, the power of the mind, imagery, some things that we just take for granted. But images, they burn a picture in your mind somewhere. And as you get older, and if you happen to go through the phase of dementia and Alzheimer's, different things that come up more frequently, or you lose the memory of a certain event or certain things that are taking place in your life. Well, guess what? We have a special guest today, a specialist that is going to talk to us regarding caregivers, statistics on brain health, statistics on Alzheimer's and dementia, and how it affects. If you have any questions that you may know friends or family that are going through Alzheimer's or dementia, please post your comments, share the video, because we need to know what you want to know, and how we can best get you that information so that you don't have to do this by yourself. Share as we invite Jazzy in onto the broadcast. I am so excited. I've been talking with her for these last few weeks regarding Alzheimer's and being part of the show, and even with her own business, and how she is growing into um, being the caregiver to provide more services to the people here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So help me welcome Miss Jackie Lindsay. Hello. Oh, what help? You're off the mute, so you can speak to the people.
Okay, I'm off.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Yes, we
So
can.
delighted to be
It's a
here.
little delay with the internet, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. That's great.
So last week I discussed my father and his battle with dementia, and you were looking at the recording, and you said, "Well, Marcia, I'm not sure if it's Alzheimer's or I know it's a form of dementia, but you gave me some information on T. Is it TCE
Yes, that's
for the
correct.
trauma? The trauma.
Chronic
Okay.
trauma.
So talk to
Yeah.
us about that.
Okay. Well, CTE is a type of dementia. It stems from a person having continuous head injuries. And as a result of it, the results of having the injuries can occur later in years. Okay. And then it resurrects itself. And it could be for a number of reasons, just because of the brain having the opportunity to either heal itself or to get worse. And when that happens, you can start seeing signs of maybe forgetfulness, having problems with their speech, or even, their behavior beginning to change. Or even in some cases, they are becoming a lot more agitated or aggressive. And then, when they start becoming uh, forgetful, then when you first see these signs, you do want to take them to the doctor. They need to be looked at, because what they experience can either help them or it can cause them to get worse. And then being able to explain to the doctor exactly the steps in which memory loss or forgetfulness or speech impediments began is so important, that the doctor understand that, so he'll know what to look for. Most people don't realize there are over 100 different types of dementia. So when we're talking about the Alzheimer's type, we're talking about first there being some memory forgetfulness. There's been word usage that changes. There is also behavior that can come into play. One of the things that you will notice is that they will start repeating themselves. And because of these different types of symptoms and signs, it's important for the doctor to take a look and then try and deduce what type of dementia or what may be causing these symptoms. And when I was listening to you last week, one of the things you put a lot of emphasis uh, on you didn't really talk about, the communication is lessening. He's beginning to be a little bit forgetful. His attitude is changing. And usually when the doctor sees them and they run these tests, when they hear your description, they're looking for plaques and tangles in the brain. And when they didn't see any of that, and they told you they couldn't see anything wrong with him, and it's like, okay, well, that's one of the first signs that they'll see are plaques and tangles in the brain. And what happens is they have beta secretors and gamma secretors that will cut the proteins, and they will develop in either tangles or they will develop either into plaques. And that wasn't happening with your father, which led me to also hear you mention he was nicknamed Evil Knievel. And I went, whoa, okay. And then
Yes.
you talked about the accidents he had and all. And I said, okay, this does not sound like Alzheimer's. It does sound like dementia, but the description you gave was CTE. Okay. So it's chronic trauma. Okay. And epiphyseal Sasias. It's a that last name. I can't even get that last name. I could think that's why they abbreviated it and called it CTE. But that just means damage to the brain and the neurological part of him. So that's why I mention it to you, because technically it sounded more like that than it did Alzheimer's disease. But you can start seeing similarities in the disease during the course as it progresses. You mentioned that one day he just didn't know who you were and he attacked you. And Alzheimer's can be aggressive, but it's because that person is trying to get them to do something that they really don't want to do. And so sometimes we can sit up and we can,
Mhm.
okay, allow it to happen because we want to be polite and we don't want to be rude. But with the dementia, your inhibitions are released and then you respond just like you feel. And that was one of the things that you had mentioned about your father. And it felt like, okay, so this is what abuse, looks like. Okay, when you're being physically abused or someone coming after you and you feel threatened. And that is one of the things that can happen with Alzheimer's, but it's more of a gradual effect rather than suddenly it happens.
That it was something that suddenly happened. We're talking about maybe a 3 year time, about a 3 to 4 year time span, in which he was forgetting, and we had to make things kind of routine for him at the house when it came time for lunch, because I still work and he was at home during the day. So I would cook pre pre prepared meals. That's the word. I'm trying to get it
Okay.
out. Um,
Okay.
and so I would put them in, a Ziploc bag, and all he had to do was take it out the freezer, put it in the microwave, and hit one button, and that was
Hmm.
simple for him. So he didn't have to worry about cook. He was never a cook anyway, unless it was grilling outside. So some things he just did because it was in he was in his right mind. So
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
was
Right.
that man that always needed a woman, right, to do those things. If it wasn't his wife or wives, it was his sisters or his nieces that would do some of those tasks for him. And so now that
Okay.
he was on his own per se, which that was an environmental shock for him, because now he's at home all day. There's certain movies that he will watch, and he would fix his meals. So he had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he had his movies that he watched. And let me tell you, I never realized how much of Shawshank Redemption I know because of his movies. To this
But
day, I can play Shawshank Redemption word for word because this was his favorite movie that he liked to
oh my
watch.
goodness. Yeah,
And
yeah.
if a DVD broke, guess what? I went out and bought another one so that he can still have something that he enjoyed to watch,
Right,
amongst other
right.
things. And he always liked comedies. He liked to laugh, you know, things
Hmm.
that was too sad or depressing. It wasn't something that was for him, but he was a comedian. He liked to joke around and play around. And so I try to keep him, his comfort as much as possible, because I didn't know. His mother ended up with had dementia and Alzheimer's, and it was a little bit different, even though we cared for her on the weekends. But my aunt really took on the brunt of those responsibilities for my grandmother, and she had diabetes. And so that I know played a factor in speaking with you, and we talk about the health of our truck drivers and how important it is to get those things back in perspective, as you're driving daily, going to different truck stops and eating and those various meals that, and I always recommend and strongly encourage that when they do stop at home, to take a couple of meals with them that are healthy meals, or when they visit friends and families, that they get those home cooked healthy meals that they can take back with them over the road. And when we talked, you had mentioned the statistics I do on the slide, but it is amazing how the African American community is affected by Alzheimer's, and how there are the highest ranking to get Alzheimer's dementia than of Caucasians and Hispanic people. And I wanted you to
Right.
talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. Well, statistics say that out of those three areas of races, that African Americans come at the top for having the most opportunities or exposures to the disease. And it has nothing to do really with their color. It is about how their lifestyle is, the lifestyle of eating other foods that are really not good for us, that will affect our arteries, that affect our weight, that affect our activities. So if you look at the world, you'll see that there is 19% of all the diseases pertaining to dementia, that it comes from the African American. And then you have the 14% that comes from Latinos in the area of dementia. And then there are whites that are 10% in the area of dementia all over the world. And when you break that down into the community, then you have the community of the United States. Okay, in our country, your that percentage is like 21.1%. And then you have about 16% that are Latino. And then you have the 12% that are probably Caucasians. And the reason is the diet, is the exercise. See, they end up having diabetes, they end up having strokes, they have habits or not being as active in athletics or not sustaining that. And because our mindset is different in a lot of cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, you'll notice that there are concerns, and especially in the body of Christ, we're not out doing a lot of the things that you might see other people doing. We go to church, we come home, we go to work, we come home, and that lifestyle of being so active and engaged and out there, we don't experience that. So with the way our bodies are made, they are to circulate. And if we're not circulating fresh blood throughout our circulatory system, then we can end up having clogged arteries. We can end up having that high blood pressure and having challenges with diabetes, and our A1C is too high and needs to get it down. So what you end up having in the United States, especially, end up having Alzheimer's disease being the seventh leading disease where people are dying. And then you have over 6 million of Americans that are actively having some form or degree of dementia. And let me explain this, that most of the time the disease is Alzheimer's. If you're looking at, is it Alzheimer's? Is it dementia? Is it vascular dementia, mixed dementia? It's usually Alzheimer's. And Because of that, it is so important that you do see a doctor so you can see, is it Alzheimer's? Because that's what we want to label it. It There are 100 different types of dementias, and if you look at what type it is, it can determine whether or not it's reversible. There are some that are well known. When you are on a local, uh, uh, you having surgery and you have anesthesia, if you're having a local one, it can cause some side effects of memory loss. If you're anemic, you can have signs of dementia. If you're diabetic, okay, you can have signs. So we're not thinking in terms of it just being Alzheimer's, although later on it will develop into Alzheimer's if you don't do anything about it. And so early getting a diagnosis from your doctor, going through the steps of trying to figure out which one, and the way they determine whether it's Alzheimer's is they do elimination and finding those things that are differentiating themselves from Alzheimer's being one of them. And at the end, when you eliminate everything on the table, what it could be, then what's left is Alzheimer's. So it is important to get a diagnosis, because if you find out early, you can reverse it. Now, one of the things, now that's just fact speaking, but there is a God, and he is quite able to change the outcome of any disease. And there have been several people, a lot more than that, but I'm just going to say several people that have had Alzheimer's diagnosed, and then to have Alzheimer's to not no longer be a part of their body, because all the symptoms, the signs of it disappeared. They were gone. And they were normal. They lived happy lives. And so it's so important not to hide it. It's so important that you get help, and to also, visit with a consultation. When you have that consultation, you're able to say everything you probably wouldn't say to a doctor, because the doctor wouldn't have that much time to talk to you, get you on a plan of activities and a lifestyle that can change the outcome. And with that outcome changing, you have a better opportunity of living longer. Now, there are some dementias in which it's generational, and that means the great grandmother had
Mhm.
it, then her sister had it, and then the grandchild had it, and then the child's brother had it, and then it goes all the way down the line of generations having, and we call that a familiar gene, which means that there are great numbers, possibilities that the family is having that disease to go down into the generations. And that is a lot harder because it is stronger in the generations, and it's practically nothing you can do. You will experience the disease. And knowing that and getting that
Yeah.
information is extremely important.
When I was doing research for breast cancer and cancer in general, they talked about the different forms of cancer and how there's some cells that are just dormant in people's bodies. But then there's some that is in a family line, like this is a genetic gene that's in the body that is causing everyone to develop cancer. And you said that with Alzheimer's and dementia, that it can also be something that is genetic.
Mhm.
So you know, when you talk about that, then it brings about, okay, so when you're looking to get married, right? Some of the things that you want to know is, do you have a genetic line, or there's something in your genetics that will cause issues with you and your kids, well, not necessarily you, but your kids to come. Because if there's a family history of Alzheimer's or dementia because of a genetic formulation, then it's going to 9 times out of 10 pass on through the next line
Right.
of children or people. Important also to humans to when we have anemia. And we have a lot of female truck drivers who, because of the way that the body is structured and the elimination, of our monthly menstruation cycle, that a lot of times that they are anemia. They're anemic. And with that, do you find or have studies shown that there's a lot of women because of that issue that go into, is that one of the reasons for or I wouldn't even say early, but all dementia and Alzheimer's
Well, you
for
almost
women?
sound like you were about to say early onset of Alzheimer's disease. There is a such thing as early onset of Alzheimer's disease. Now, they try and put it into mild cognitive impairment now, and then the early stage, middle stage, and late stage. And what people don't know is that you could have the trait in your system from 20 to 25 years before you ever see a sign of it actually manifesting in your life. And recognizing that that's possible, the sure way of really reducing those chances of it manifesting, because it's like a gene that's activated, and it can be activated because of the environment or what comes out of your mouth. That's why God tells us that we're supposed to be forgiving. You need to forgive, bring your gifts to the altar, sit them there, and then go and get your life right with whomever you've offended or you're upset, because those negative feelings can actually activate the genes that start the process of forgetfulness or uh, behavior problems, or not remembering or repeating the same thing. So
Oh,
you can activate that. And just as you can activate it, you can change that situation by what comes out of your mouth, by what you think, by what you're saying to other people, what you believe about yourself. And so our words can bring on activation of those responses that will cause genes and will cause chromosomes to fold on themselves. And especially there's the pion chromosome, and it folds on itself when your attitude is negative, and it affects you outwardly,
Jackie.
and it's also affecting you inwardly. So with that,
All
we have a
right.
lot to do
Well,
with that. So it's been very
okay.
important
So,
for,
well,
for
look, we're
our
gonna have
attitude to
to,
change.
yes, we're gonna have to come back and take up on that on our next broadcast, because it is going to be very, very important, even as we go closer to the end and finding solutions, how we can really tackle this and provide a solution to our audience. And I tell you, anger it triggers a whole lot of different in the body. So I really do appreciate appreciate you, and we will see you next week.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be a part of your broadcast.
All right. I will see you next week. All right, you all. That was Miss Jackie Lindsay with Lindsay House Caregiver Dementia Consultant Agency. She has a wealth of information for us to really take hold of. When we start talking about the mind and all the different components that could cause or lead up to dementia and Alzheimer's, it brings in an extensive conversation. So come back and join next week when we start talking about the anger and how that triggers, and how also too you can heal. You can heal. The body was built to heal itself. Just think about this. We have pharmakia, producing all this drugs to take care of something that the body really can heal itself of. And how we intake in the information, how we intake our food, how we intake what we watch, what we listen to, how we release things, right? So we take in the good, let it process, and then we release. We take in the bad, process it, and then let it release. We can't allow things to lay dormant in our hearts. We can't allow things to lay dormant in our body, even though there's some of what in one of my teachings, it was for an opportune time. There's one thing that can take us out, of this world. And whether it is, Alzheimer's, cancer, an accident, anything can take us out, but we can't leave anything to chance, right? So I appreciate you all for watching. And this month, November the 11th, is Veterans Day. So I would like to say happy Veterans Day to all of my commercial drivers, my truck drivers. I really do appreciate your service. One, for the trucking community, and two, for serving our nation. And your labor of what you have produced and put out, and the wars that you have fought. I really want to say thank you to you. And as we go on with this broadcast, and next week we will touch on those areas of how the war has affected many of people with early set dementia and Alzheimer's, and how we can provide a better solution for that. All right. So for more information on Mackie Lindsay and how to reach her, you can certainly reach her by calling 1-899-606-8131 or 918-510-6062 to schedule a consultation. If you know someone that is going through some of the symptoms that she's described earlier, out to her. Even though she may be listed in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, the wealth and knowledge that she has extends beyond the state border. All right. So thank you all for joining. If you're looking for dispatch services, please give us a call at 1-800-404-2554, extension 703, and we will make sure that we get someone to help you with your dispatch needs. All right. And if you would like to hear more subject matters from Trucker Talk Thursday that we have not covered, or you would like more information on it, certainly send us an email at contact us at xlsolutions.biz. All right. I look forward to seeing you next week. Say have the solution to transportation needs. Thank you all for joining us. And we will see you real soon. All right. Technology today. Good night, you all.